Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Really excited to have you here with us. I'm just going to read off some names as people start to join the group, and we'll go and get into some specifics once we get started, once everybody's here. But hi, there's some great people on this call, on this webinar. Thank you for joining us. Billy Sabatini, hello. Alice Cochran from Call of the Sea. Oh, Billy Sabatini is with Flagship Niagara League, just in case that he needs further introduction. Erica Denner, hello from Pride, thank you. And Jeff Crosby also. Also Jeff Buchheit, the Executive Director, thank you for joining us. We've got Nick Hardesty from the Tall Ships America office, and Erin Short is on line, and she is from the Tall Ships America office. Erin also needs no further introduction, does she? We've got several people joining us, and as people start to add, this is going to be one of those days, folks, so just bear with me as people start to join us. Go into the chat room and just, if you don't mind, type your name and your organization in the chat room, and then we'll make sure that everybody gets it. You can have a shout out at some point during this. We're going to have a pretty well attended webinar. There should be about 40 people on, which is great. That's terrific. And we may not be able to say hello to everybody, but what we do want to do is try to make sure that we're having as much contact as possible, as much as this particular format allows. We're going to start with Chris Serino from Sultana Education Foundation, and then we're also going to add in Maggie Osler and Danielle Noble from Picton Castle. So we'll have, a good rounded hour of education on board and online. So as people continue to join us, we've got Susan Britton from Adventurous on the West Coast. Pete Tebow, one of our, I don't think I said Pete, but he's on our board. He's an educator and is in Connecticut, and he is also joining us. There's a couple people I don't recognize where you're from. And so I know Hallie Grimes is on, and I believe Hallie is with Grays Woods. So make sure you put your affiliation in the chat room as well. That will help everybody know who else is here. David Livingstone, Eliza Brownstein. Eliza, I apologize, I know your name, but I can't remember who you're affiliated with, so please put that in the chat box. We're going to give a couple more minutes so we can get people who can join us before we get started. If anybody has a question, please use the Q&A box for that, and we'll make sure that we get to any questions. We'll be monitoring that, monitoring the chat room to make sure that everything goes into the Q&A. So hopefully we'll be able to get to all the questions before the end of the session. So we'll just keep, and Billy, yes, reminder, Billy also is a member of the Tall Ships America board. David Livingstone with Kalmar Nickel Foundation. Yes, that's right. Thank you for joining us. Oh, so Maggie and Danielle are both on the same line. That's terrific. Maggie and Danielle have joined us, and they will be part of the panel this afternoon as well. So this is going to be a little bit of a lesson in how sausage is made, because we busy people that we are, we haven't really had an opportunity to practice. And so we're going to just jump into it and again, have an opportunity to ask as many questions as we can and engage as well as we can with the people who are involved. As we get started here, I'm just going to provide a little bit of a background on Tall Ships America and where we are with our educational agenda, just so everybody gets a chance to kind of get caught up with that. Most of you, I think, will already know that we are doing what everybody is doing. We're really pivoting. This was an opportunity that we started at the conference, and we were launching it then, and we are going to continue to move into this space. The advent of the pandemic and then the economic bust that we're all going through means that we're launching into that a little bit quicker than we had possibly anticipated. But that's okay. It's where we need to be, and it is part of our mission. So it is definitely a core mission for us, and that is adventure and education under sail. And so our approach is to make sure that we are upping the ante on the educational aspect of what we do. So developing curriculum, developing projects, developing funding sources and programs that can be carried out on our member vessels so that we can make sure that we're all engaging in the best educational programs possible, that we're recruiting and retaining people in as part of the workforce. And we're making sure that we're continue to be a good feeder for the rest of the maritime industry, as well as for people to be good employees anywhere and everywhere they may want to be employed. So I'm really excited that you all joined us for this. This is going to be the first of hopefully a 2 or 3-parter. The first session is going to be about going from education on board to education online. And we're going to look at it in 2 parts. First part being education in more formal connections to K-12 or content standard education. And then the second part will be about more workforce development and training for work in the maritime industry through boat school with Picton Castle. I think our member vessels have done just a tremendous job of pivoting in this time and taking as much as they can into an online platform. So we've got a lot to learn from each other in this space, and I hope that we have a chance to ask lots of questions about it. The second part of what we will be doing is experiential education online. How do you do experiential hands-on learning when it's mediated by a screen? We have to figure out ways to do that. There's a conference on the West Coast right now with Beatles and the Lawrence Hall of Science, and there is a lot of workshops around educational experiences online. And so there's a lot that everybody's trying to learn about how to engage students and keep them learning in as much of a hands-on way as possible when the teacher may be miles away or hundreds of miles away or thousands of miles away. So that'll be the next in the series of education online, on board and online. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started with our first panelist, and that's going to be Chris Serino. And Chris is has been working at Sultana. What, did I say it wrong?
No, my dog is like sniffing me.
Oh,
I'm trying to get him away.
Okay, well, he can join in. Chris has been working at Sultana Education Foundation since 2000, when he became the organization's first director of education. Obviously, that really signals a direct involvement and direct connection to education. The first year at Sultana was spent designing the curriculum that would be implemented during the schooner's under sail programs, now widely regarded as some of the most unique and effective on-the-water programs in the country. Chris currently serves as Sultana Education Foundation's Vice President and oversees all of the Foundation's educational program offerings. In recent years, Chris played an instrumental role in expanding Sultana Education Foundation's educational footprint to include paddling programs on canoes and kayaks for students of all ages. So Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak to all of us and share what you've been doing, because I think it's really been great. So I'm just going to turn it over to you.
All right, absolutely. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's always really awesome to talk to like-minded individuals in our industry, so to speak. So thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to kind of do 2 things. One is I'm going to basically tell you guys a little history of the organization and hopefully screen share if all the technology works out, and show you some images of what we would normally be doing during a typical year. And then I'll spend the second half of my time here kind of telling you how we've pivoted to more of a digital platform and a small group platform in the age of COVID-19. So I think I can just go ahead and pop this up here. Let me see. Are you guys seeing that, or do I need to hit screen share, Chris?
I think you need to hit screen share.
Okay. Let's see.
There you go.
All right. So hopefully everybody can see that. Is that coming up well for you, Chris?
No, it's not. It's just a blank screen right now.
Okay, that's no good. How about that?
No.
Nice. All right, let me try that. Here we go. How about that?
That works.
Okay. So just a little bit about us. Just I'm going to assume that none of you guys have ever heard of us, that you don't know who we are at all, even though I know like Mirwald and, you know, several other vessels I saw have worked with us before. So we were founded in the fall of 1998. We built this boat, the schooner Sultana, which you see here on the left-hand panel. It's a replica of a vessel that was used historically to enforce the Townsend Acts in colonial, the mid-Atlantic region in the years prior to the American Revolution. So we launched the boat in 2000. Since 2001, we've been conducting undersail programs with students, mostly on the Chesapeake Bay, that focus on the history and ecology of the estuary. So, our goal when we get kids out on the boat is to do things in a manner that is hands-on and experiential, and teach them in ways that simply can't be replicated in the classroom setting. And in doing this, we want to create an informed and inspired community that acts to restore and preserve the Chesapeake Bay. Our mission is to provide transformative educational experiences where students investigate the natural and human history of the Bay while exploring solutions for a more sustainable ecosystem. Isn't that a slick mission statement? We just did that like last year. But anyway, the point is kids come out on the boat, and I know many of you do similar things. So I'm just going to show you some images. They come out on the vessel. They're either on a river near their school or somewhere out on the Chesapeake Bay. We want our programs to be hands-on. We want them to be as interactive as possible. We have a history and a science focus so they can come learn more about the colonial maritime history aspect of the vessel, or they can come learn just about the ecosystem of the Chesapeake Bay. And often we'll have programs where we're kind of combining history and ecology program. We do these programs for a lot of different audiences. We do schools, we take out adult groups, we do teacher training programs on the vessel. We'll also do things called public sales where you can just sign up on an individual basis on a weekend and come sail with us for $30 a head. We're regional in scope, so we do operate out of our home port of Chestertown, Maryland, one of the coolest little colonial seaports in the world. But we are regional in scope, so we take the boat to your school system. So if we're working with kids from Dorchester County, we go to this little town called Cambridge, Maryland on the Eastern Shore. If we want to work with kids from Annapolis, we'll actually sail to Annapolis and stay there for a week. And doing this, our organization deals with about 10,000 students a year, about which half of those, about 5,000 in a typical year, are on Sultana. So what do we do on the boat? There she is under full sail, which rarely ever happens, especially when we have kids on the boat. So it's really nice that I have that picture. But again, when we get kids on the boat, we want them to do things that are as interactive and hands-on as possible. So you see kids here on the left raising sails. We pull a trawl net. We let kids handle the marine life. So this young man's holding a blue crab. There's a really awesome educator right there holding a couple of catfish. So, this is a really exciting thing. A lot of these kids have never been on the Chesapeake Bay before, let alone on a tall ship, let alone pulling this big net and seeing these giant catfish that only a few brave sailors have the guts to handle. And that guy right there is a pretty talented educator. Here's another close-up view of a catfish. You can see this kid touching the fish. You see the reaction on the kids' faces. This is kind of what our programs are all about. Kissing fish, that might be part of the curriculum every once in a while. We also do other things like conduct experiments on water chemistry. So these guys are doing a pH test to monitor the water quality of the bay. This young lady here did a salinity test. She used this probe to learn that the salinity that day was 3.8 parts per thousand. Well, who cares? And what does that mean? That's a topic that we might cover on the boat. So we've been doing that since about 2001. In the last 20 odd years, we've taken over 100,000 people out sailing. When we were sitting around here in early March, you know, my main job at Sultana is to be the guy that books the boat, that books all of our programs and kind of oversees all of these programming. You know, on March 1st, I was looking at one of the fullest calendars we'd ever had. The boat was fully booked, you know, through the end of our sailing season in early November. Our canoe trips were fully booked. Our summer programs were almost full. And then within about 15 days, the whole world turned upside down. And now we're in the COVID-19 new reality. And so I'll deal with that, you know, at the end here. A couple things about trips on the boat is that we make a pretty concerted effort to try to make this more than just a 3-hour trip on a boat. That's like sort of this random experience that a kid has during the school year. We have a couple of curriculum workbooks that we can either mail ahead to the teachers or we have them posted as PDFs online. And we really encourage our clients to, in their classroom, do some of the work in these preparatory materials ahead of their field trip, and then also after they get back, so that it's more of a continuum that fits into their existing curriculum. So we do a lot of 5th graders and 4th graders, because 4th grade in Maryland public schools is when they study colonial America and Maryland, and then 5th grade, they do, a lot of students do ecology, and then they do like the colonial world. So we try really hard to have our undersail programs meet the curriculum expectations at the state level. In our case, it's Maryland. We also try to provide materials, again, that make this a multiple day experience, of which Sultana is, you know, the one day that everything sort of comes together and we make everything pop and make everything fun. The reason that's important is because when COVID hit, we had to pivot and we wanted to put our curriculum resources in a different format that were even more useful for schools. And we wanted to try to continue to have a live presence with these kids. And I'll talk about that kind of at the end. But just other things that Sultana does, the boat's been pretty full since our very first year in 2001. So in 2008, we expanded sort of laterally, and we have this canoe rig that we trailer all around the Chesapeake Bay. And this is a really neat way to get kids out on smaller bodies of water we can't hit with Sultana. We can trailer this rig really close to the school system and meet them on a waterway that's really close to their school, which makes transportation really nice and easy for them. Here's a group exploring a marsh on the Chester River with us 2 summers ago. And then in 2011, the canoe rig had been so popular that we expanded to buy this kayak rig, which again, we trailer around all around the state. This is a group of kids we had out on the Nanticoke River on the southern eastern shore. And then more recently, actually public programs. So there's the Kalmar Nickel. I think the Kalmar Nickel has representation on this call. We do other public programs, which again, we're not going to be able to do this year because of COVID, but this is probably our signature event, Downrigging Weekend, where we invite ship from all over the Mid-Atlantic region, including the AJ Mirald, which I also know is on this call. And this has become one of the sort of the biggest tall ship events on the Chesapeake Bay, if not the biggest. And then lastly, we have this education center in Chestertown, which has been really neat. It's allowed us to do land-based programming in conjunction with groups that come on the ship. So this group of kids, they're from a place called Greensboro, Maryland, about 30 minutes away. Instead of just coming and being on the boat for a half day and going back to their school, they come for a whole day. They spend half of their day on the boat, and then they spend half of their day working with some of our staff at this building where we have critters in our wet lab, we have lecture halls, we have all kinds of AV stuff to show them. And that's been a real boon to expanding us to be a year-round educational presence. And this is actually important because now that COVID is here, we're using this kind of as a studio to do live broadcasts to a lot of these same students. And I'll touch on that here at the end. So here's a 7th grader doing a dissection in our lab. And this also has allowed us to go through the winter months when otherwise we really wouldn't be doing any programming. So that's kind of a little bit of background about our organization. And Chris, if I could turn this over to you, if you could screen share that website, I'll talk a little bit about what we did during the month of March when it became pretty apparent that we were probably going to lose all or most of our on the water in-person field trips. So March, I'm sure all of you experienced the same thing. My colleague Drew was like, Chris, have you heard about this coronavirus thing? It's really hitting China really hard. I'm like, yeah, whatever. This kind of thing happens all the time. Like blowing it off. It's probably going to be like the West Nile or all these other things that sounded so bad, but really were minimally invasive. And Drew's like, no, this could really happen. Like this could, it's spreading to Europe, and I'm keeping a close eye on it. I'm like, yeah, whatever, Drew. Well, within 3 weeks of that conversation, Maryland was on total lockdown, and Governor Hogan and Superintendent of Maryland Public Schools had announced that school was going to be virtual for, like, initially they said a month. Then after a month, it was obvious things hadn't gotten better. And then we were like, man, we're probably going to lose all of our spring field trips. So what are we going to do? And is there any way that we can take what we do and try to put it on a virtual platform and make that interesting? So the first thing we did is we created this website. This is a website that did not exist on March 1st. And by like May 1st, this was something that we sort of unveiled to local teachers. And the idea here was that we took the curriculum that had been in our workbooks and we formatted it in such a way that we broke it down into different units that we cover on different types of programming. And we made a series of about 3 to 6 minute videos where we took little topics that we would normally cover on these programs and made a video about that topic, which then also has a curriculum piece that attaches to that topic, and then posted these collectively as units that teachers could use. When we made this live and we sent out this mass email to all of our clients, I can't tell you how appreciative they were, because these teachers are not trained to be online educators. They're trained to be in a classroom in front of kids, just like we're all trained to be on boats doing cool stuff in the outdoors. So first of all, just as a resource, the teachers were really, really appreciative. I will also say that this guy here in the picture, John Mann, he got a call after we unveiled this website from a Cub Scout group. And they were like, hey, we were going to go on this little trip to get our merit badge on, like, you know, furs and animals. Is there any way you could do some sort of virtual field trip for us where we would invite you to our Zoom meeting and you can use some of the resources you have in your education center, and you can kind of like give us a presentation from your laptop? And John was like, I don't know, we've never done that before, but we're definitely willing to give it a shot. So this is a picture of John Mann, my colleague, working with this group of Cub Scouts. Initially, we were like, all right, how long are these kids really going to be willing to watch build up shells and pelts? We thought we'd be thrilled if it went 30 minutes. And this session ended up going 90 minutes. And that kind of lit this little light bulb, like, hey, these teachers right now are meeting with their students on Zoom twice a day, 5 days a week. And that's got to be rough. And it's also got to be kind of boring. And maybe we could offer these teachers programs online where they would essentially, you know, we would arrange with them a date and a time. They would invite us to join their pre-existing Zoom meeting, and we would essentially join that meeting as a guest presenter. That proved to be super, super popular. So if you look here on the left side of the menu, it says virtual classroom at the top, then it says about Sultana's virtual classroom. That's just a little paragraph about it. If you see that virtual classroom live, if you could hit that, Chris. This was really kind of the crux of what we did all spring and what we've continued to do throughout the summer. So if you could scroll up a little bit, you could see one of our instructors here, Beth. She's doing an interactive program with kids online. So I'm applying this to like Sultana specifically because this is a group of tall shit people. So one of the programs that you could sign up for as a teacher is you call me up or you email me and say, hey, our Sultana trip got canceled, but we would love for you to be a guest presenter at my Zoom meeting next Friday at 10 a.m. I'd be like, all right, let's open on the calendar. Let's get it scheduled. Why don't you go to our colonial history Schooner Sultana unit? So Chris, if you could click on that on the left, you know, you're going to find, a ton of different little topics about the boat. So why don't you, before this Zoom, go to this page, and if you could just kind of scroll down, Chris, there's like history of the boat, deck tour, a little video about the sails, a little video about the rigging. We have a whole video about the tiller. There's a video about the living quarters. There's a video about the food on the boat. There's a video about the medical tools. There's a video about the logbooks. There's a video about the muskets that they would have had back in the day. There's a video about African-American sailors. We know we had at least one African-American sailor. There's a video about nav. There's a video about all these different navigational tools that we would typically have on the boat. So this, I could give this teacher a list depending on how much or how little they wanted to prep and be like, hey, have your kids watch these 3 to 5 videos. And so, Chris, if you could go, let's scroll up to the history of Sultana at the very top. So if I said, hey, go learn about the history of Sultana, if you click that, each one of these squares has a video. Look at that awesome actor on that video. That guy is talented. There's like a 4 or 5 minute video about the history of the boat where we like interspersed primary documents and stuff. But then below that, these are some of our curriculum items we took out of our workbooks and broke them into just little topics that match these videos. So Chris, if you could click on like Townsend Acts of 1767 right there, click on that. And then there's just a little piece just about that specific act, right? And we had to format all this so it looked like it belonged on this website. So there's a little written piece about the Townsend Acts, and then there's little comprehension questions. So the idea here is that hopefully one day COVID either disappears, as our president keeps telling me, or we have a vaccine, or we have a treatment, or we have like really quick testing that allows kids to come on the boat again one day. This will still be able to live on as a resource, assuming we ever get back to normal. And in the meantime, it's a great resource for teachers that are super, super hungry for any kind of products that are new and different and exciting to kids. So again, if you have a kid that's not a strong reader, they can just watch the video. If you have kids that have aptitude, they watch the video, they do a bunch of these activities. You can take a day, you can take a month. And I had teachers that were just so thankful that we put all this in this format for them. But again, the way that we've connect with the kids is by doing these virtual field trips. Now you might be wondering, how are you guys affording all this? And that's a great question. We decided from a pretty early on that we really couldn't charge the schools to have us come online for 45 minutes to an hour because their budgets are already, total crap like yours are probably. There's just so many other things online. We just wanted to get in front of the kids. So we've kind of tried to fund this by going to foundations that already supported us. And we're making the case that like, look, this is a resource that the teachers desperately need. We want to be a resource for them. Can you help provide funding for our staff time to keep this going and to allow us to keep doing these programs? And we've already gotten one grant for about $25,000 to help pay for this initiative. Both the staff time to get it online and also our staff time to keep doing these programs, which will start again in the fall. So just in the month of May, when we rolled this out, we did about 40 programs for about 1,000 students. And it was just a great way to stay in touch. So the last thing I'll say about, if you can go back to just that homepage, Chris, where John is kind of teaching there. There you go. So you'll see John's holding up an oyster. So we've learned a few tricks in doing this. If you're thinking about emulating this kind of thing and you're invited to a Zoom meeting and you've got 20 kids, it's real tempting to just sit there and talk at the kids for the whole hour because you probably could just bring really cool stuff from the boat. What we've learned actually is that using that chat feature is an awesome way to kind of keep everybody engaged. So John might hold that object up and instead of just starting to talk about it, he might say, hey, everybody go to the chat and guess what you think this object is. Or, actually what that is this giant fossilized oyster that's huge. It's really pretty cool. So you might say, hey, this is a giant fossilized oyster. Go to the chat and tell me 3 things that oysters do that are positive for the ecosystem of the Chesapeake Bay. So in that way, the kids have to be kind of on point and listening to you. and they can actually have input by engaging with you on the chat. We try to staff these with 2 people so that while John is kind of asking questions, I can be on the chat, you know, saying, hey, like, really cool answer, you know, really great answer, Johnny, or whatever. So, you know, that's a way to like keep the kids engaged and like give them stuff to do where, you know, they're not just kind of sitting there listening passively. And opening the chat bar to the whole class can be a little bit interesting, especially as the kids get older and they want to talk to each other with the chat. But it's great for like younger kids because they just want to be able to engage with you. So that's kind of a brief history of the spring. We actually just heard yesterday that Maryland is basically going all virtual. Actually, Kent County, Maryland, where we are, they're going all virtual through the fall. Queen Anne's County, which is just to our south, they're totally virtual through Christmas break. And so we're really envisioning this is going to be kind of like the main way that we get in front of our clients that would otherwise have been sailing on Sultana this fall, and probably, I hate to say this, probably through the rest of this current school year. So Chris, that's kind of the end of my spiel. I don't know if anybody has questions or.
Well, that's really great. And I want to make sure that we have enough time for people to ask questions. So please, if you do have questions, put them in the Q&A. But I've got a couple questions before we move on to Picton Castle. How much of this was invention versus reinvention for an online platform? Were you able to kind of roll things into online, or did you have to start from scratch and build it first and then?
That's a great question. All the videos were done from scratch, but they were on topics that we teach all the time. So I didn't, you'll see I'm in a lot of these videos just because I've been doing this for 20 plus years. And so all these topics are things that I've taught kids for decades, literally for decades. So I never wrote a single script, you know, and I'm almost just kind of like the guy that can do that kind of thing. You know, I have a lot of weaknesses, but one of the things I can do is just kind of get on camera and talk pretty well in a couple of takes. So they were done from scratch, but using material that we knew backwards and forwards, where we didn't have to sit there and like write 60 scripts. And then with the curriculum, it was just a matter of reformatting. In some cases, we added some new things, but for the most part, we were taking existing activities we had on these PDFs that we'd already invented, and then just reformatting them so that they all looked like they belonged on this virtual website. So that, because we had 3 different workbooks that all had very different looks to them. That took a long time, but it was more just the time than it was like reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, yeah. That's terrific. And when you were working with the schools, is the Sultana part of it elected as part of the regular curriculum?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We mostly fill our schedule with long-standing county-wide relationships that we have with school systems that are usually within about an hour drive of where we're based in Chestertown. So most of these school systems, it's just like what you do when you're in 5th grade. In 5th grade, every kid gets on the Sultana. In Dorchester County, in Caroline County, in Kent County, in Talbot County. So it is ingrained into their curriculum on some level. It's not just like I'm booking 200 random schools that aren't related to one another. So that helped. That definitely helps. And I'm hopeful a lot of the schools will meet us on the virtual level while this is all going on. And I'm confident that they will, because they are so hungry for this kind of thing.
Right. Right. Okay, I have a final question. I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A unless I'm missing it. Nothing yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and carry on, and then we're going to switch over to Maggie and Danielle. But for the, do you have any, how many of the students that you're working with come back in time to sail with Sultana or to come on board or whatever? I mean, absent the school, do you kind of hook them?
You mean how many kids that come on these virtual platforms are going to come back sailing with us?
Or came to a real, when they actually were on Sultana and then came back maybe with their parents in tow or something like that?
Yeah, so a lot of these groups that booked these virtual programs with us, almost all of them, the teachers had some in-person experience with us, whether they're the teachers that bring their kids on Sultana every year, or teachers that did professional development with us at some point, or teachers that came on our paddling rigs. So I would say over 90% of the schools that did this virtual version of our program had an in-person connection with us prior to us doing this. And we're very hopeful that, you know, assuming there is a vaccine at some point, they'll come back in person. And this is, we see this almost like as a bridge, keep us in front of that audience in a way that's meaningful and valuable to them while this is all going on.
Great. Great. Well, thank you very much for that,
Yeah,
Chris.
of course.
Really appreciate that. And so we're going to kind of move into part 2 of this. And so we're going to see if this works. Maggie and Danielle, I am going to promote you to be a panelist, so you should be joining us. And Chris, I am going to demote you, so you should be leaving us. Thank you, and we'll come back and add you if we need to.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, and then Maggie and Danielle. There you go. You should be joining us, hopefully. There you are. Excellent. I love it when a plan comes together. Okay. Chris, I'm going to figure out how to get you off this, but meanwhile, we'll let Maggie and Danielle get started, okay?
All right. Hopefully everybody can see us and hear us okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, thank you, Chris, for having us. We're excited to talk about Bosun School. I will give you a little bit of an introduction to what Bosun School is all about, a little bit of general information about the program, and then Danielle will talk more about sort of the process of taking Bosun School online, which is where we are starting out actually just today. So this is all pretty new to us still. But Bosun School is a program at Picton Castle. It's a vocational training program. It's a land-based program, which is a little bit unusual. And so Bosun School is designed for young mariners who already know that they like going to sea and already know that they have some sort of interest in working at sea. And so they come to Bosun School in order to help develop their skills, their technical skills. We know there are a lot of other skills and certifications that mariners need, you know, where you are looking at, you know, things like training and navigation and emergency duties and things like that. Bosun School is really designed for sort of more of the ship maintenance skills, marlin spike seamanship skills, sort of hands-on things that you're actually sort of working and practicing yourself in order to develop those skills as well. And so we started Bosun School. The first session was back in 2007. And it was begun because we had noticed really in hiring our own professional crew that there were sometimes some gaps. You know, really credentialed, really qualified people who didn't necessarily have some of the technical skills that we might have expected them to have. And so we started Bosun School, you know, in some ways, some might say a little bit selfishly because we've ended up hiring some of our own graduates over the years, but, you know, also to help sort of raise the level of skill and the level of professionalism in our industry so that we can send you know, send more trained, more qualified, more experienced people out to work in all of your ships as well. And so Bosun School has run 8 times. It is always run here in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, on the east coast of Canada. And typically it's a longer program, the in-month program, or the in-person program. It's usually about 3 months. And so we during that time, we're able to do a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, and that's something that we really think helps sort of people learn the skills and remember the skills, and almost develop like a muscle memory for those skills. So some of it is sort of like the typical bosun stuff. You're going to think of it like wire splicing, or rigging block and tackle, or serving and splicing and things like that. Some of it is a little bit more kind of, I don't know, a little bit of psychology in some ways, and general management and maintenance in some ways. So you'll see that one of our first online lessons is all about painting techniques. So something most people think they know how to do, but there are really some tips and tricks and secrets to how to do it well. So bosun school, the lead instructor is Captain Dan Moreland, and he is usually assisted by some of our veteran Picton Castle crew. And so when we, back in March, when all of this started, we were supposed to have been setting sail on a year-long voyage to the South Pacific to Picton Castle. Clearly that didn't happen, and so we originally had delayed the start of the voyage by a couple of months, pushing it back to July. Then we pushed it back to October, and just recently realized that even an October start is just not realistic. So we pushed it back until next spring. And so that gave us some time where the ship is in port here, and we were starting to think about other things that we could be doing to sort of help kind of help keep the mission going, and make use of the ship, and make use of the facilities that we have here. In addition to Picton Castle, we have a big wharf, we have a carpentry warehouse or a carpentry workshop, we have a rigging workshop as well, and so those are spaces that should be used. And so we decided that we wanted to try and go ahead with a bosun school this summer, and thinking that there would be a bunch of people who might be interested but might not be able to come. That sort of started to get our wheels turning on thinking about how to do it online as well. So that all of it sort of was a bit of a seed of an idea, and then we found out about a funding opportunity through an industry association, Marine Industry Association here in Canada. We applied for the grant. We had high hopes. We were crossing all our fingers, and then we didn't get it. Which was, in the beginning, we were a little disappointed, to be perfectly honest. But we decided that this was a good enough idea that we wanted to try to move ahead with it in some way. And so what we are doing is sort of the shoestring budget version that we're doing as a bit of a pilot project, just to try it out, test it out, see how it works, and see if it sort of takes off. And we're launching it very shortly, actually just today. So all feedback is welcome. But I'm going to turn it over to Danielle to tell you a little bit more about some of the sort of the online aspect of bosun school.
Yeah, so we are very excited to be doing this. As Maggie mentioned, it's brand new for us. We've never done something like this before, and our first video will be out before the end of the afternoon today. So we're going to send everyone the link of how to access it, and our first 2 episodes are going to be free for viewing. So there won't be a charge there, so you can kind of get the feel for what we're doing, and also because we are in a learning process, as Maggie says, and we're pilot mode here, so so the first 2 are sort of us learning and what's working best for these videos. So again, as Maggie has mentioned before, with COVID-19, there were so many different restrictions here in Nova Scotia. We typically have larger groups that can come and do bosun school. We were restricted to smaller groups from numbers that the government had regulated, and also a lot of our students that come are international, and Canada currently isn't accepting international people to come in or if you do, you have to quarantine for 14 days, and it's pretty strict guidelines on to be able to enter Canada. So through all this, we decided, because there were so many people who were interested, we wanted to be able to bring it to people to be able to access from the safety of their own homes. So that's why we started going with Bosun School Online. Basically, I'm just going to go through the decisions that we've made to use different software, what platforms we're using, and things like that. And I'll give you kind of a little overview about how people from home and how Bosun School will work for them. So we decided to go ahead using Vimeo Pro, and there's a Vimeo On Demand feature that you can get through a Vimeo Pro subscription. So basically what we can do is it's sort of like a Netflix Crave thing where there's lots of different videos you can watch, but in this case, you pay per video that you'd like to watch. So this was a way that we could put it up online for a really long time. We can sort of change it, we can adjust to whatever we want for how long we want people to be able to view the videos. So there was a lot of flexibility for us in that way. So we have opted at the moment, you can rent each of the videos as they come in, and once we have more videos, as we create more and more, we will eventually, we're talking about putting together something where you can sort of pay to see all the videos. It'll be, just sort of like a package deal for different episodes that we have. So as I said, the first two are going to be free, and then after that, each video is going to cost $12 Canadian, which is about $9 US. And then again, there will be a package eventually. And these episodes are going to be, they're different lessons. So our first one is going to be on painting techniques, as Maggie mentioned. Our next one is on sort of basic knots, useful for a bosun on a ship, and then we'll move into lots of different things like small boats and maintenance and things like that as we move forward. So the reason we chose Vimeo was because, first of all, you can upload really high quality video, and you have a lot of storage space to be able to put up lots of videos as well. We did look into into different webinar options as well, but as Bosun School isn't really we don't really have a strict schedule, and we're really weather dependent and things like that. We didn't think it was going to be useful for us to have, say, a workshop scheduled for 1 o'clock and maybe we have a thunderstorm and we can't go ahead. So that's why we decided to pre-record it and then post it online afterward. And in this way too, it kind of gave us some opportunities to be a little bit more creative with the videos and to have something that would be lasting and can be up for as long as we want online. Just to give you guys some ideas of what it costs for us to be using Vimeo Pro, it is $24.99 Canadian a month, and you take home 90% of the revenue from videos. So, so for each time someone rents a video, we would get about $10, $11. As Maggie mentioned, we did apply for a grant, and because we were not successful, we've become creative and we're using staff-owned equipment and things like that. So I just wanted to give you guys an overview of what equipment we are using during our lessons. We are using a Canon Rebel, an Olympus camera, and a Zoom Handy recorder for audio, and then we are editing the videos with Adobe Premiere Pro. So these are things that we already had, and we've been just being creative with them into using them for our videos. So for Bosun School, we plan to have this being posted every week until about the late fall. Our Bosun School is only until the end of August in person here, but we plan to do about 2 to 3 videos a week, and then we're only going to be posting 1 a week. So this is going to be something that people can enjoy well late into the fall. And then once you rent a video, you can also have it for up to a year. So you can go back and look at it, and you can say you missed something and you wanted to go back and try it again. You can definitely do that. And these are videos too that you might want to keep using and practice, because we give people opportunity to try it at home as well during the videos. And we do post also the equipment that you need to have in order to be able to do the videos beforehand too, so you know everything you'll need so that you can follow along with Captain Moreland. And the final thing I wanted to talk about was whether or not people would be getting certification for Bosun School Online. So we've had that question asked to us before, you do get certification if you're there in person. However, as this is a pilot project, we have really no way of testing skills of people taking the courses at home. So it's on our radar that maybe potentially in a future time we do it, if we could figure out sort of a more course-based approach to doing it, so we could do testing and things like that. But for now, it is only by audit, so you can just view it at home and learn how to do what Captain Moreland's giving the lesson on at home. But we are going to create a Facebook group that will be attached to the Vimeo on-demand page. So people can discuss with each other, they can have open, if they have questions and things like that. And then of course, we're always available in the office too for questions from people. So I think at this point, we might show you what our Vimeo on-demand page looks like. So we're gonna try to share our screen here.
Okay. One second.
Are you all able to see that? Yeah? Okay, good. So this is what our Vimeo on-demand page looks like. At the moment, we just have some graphics and we have our trailer posted, but before the end of the afternoon, there will be episode 1 that will be available in bonus content so that people can watch it for free. But this link, which is vimeo.com/on-demand/bosun school, can be accessed by anyone publicly. So this is how you get to our profile. So you can see it's a little bit like sort of like a Netflix setup in the way that you can see the poster and things like that. But the way it's different is that you pay per video. But yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like. I'm not sure if we can play
The trailer? Want to?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
We're gonna try.
We're gonna try.
The trailer. Great. Yeah, so that's pretty much all we have. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but we'd be happy to answer them.
That's great. It's good to see the video and see what it looks like and all of that. There are a couple questions. I have a quick one. I'm going to jump in because I can. I'm curious as to the equipment that you're using. People are doing anything, from mobile phone recordings to, really studios. And I know that Sultana has a really good studio set up for the recording. How did you select the equipment and did you try it with something less than before and then decide, oh, the quality is just not there? Or how did you come up with that equipment vision? And do you have a list of it you could share with us that we could see what works?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share it with you. And as I mentioned, this was equipment that we owned. So we basically chose the highest quality equipment that we had amongst us in the office to put together these videos. They had been things that have been used before, and that's why we chose this equipment. But if anyone was looking to do something like this too, like you said, cell phones have excellent quality. A lot of the newer cell phones do wonderful things. I would say, you don't need to have the most professional camera. That was just something that we chose to try out and see how we could do that. But I guess maybe if I type in the chat, I'll check in the chat.
If you can do that, yeah, that would be terrific. Yeah. I think. Oops.
And I will say that we had bigger equipment dreams when we had originally applied for the funding. And when we didn't get it, we sort of said, okay, what do we already have? And so most of what we're using, Danielle has brought in from home, along with sort of all of the materials that we would ordinarily be using for Both in School. But in terms of recording equipment, yeah, sort of personal stuff that belongs to us.
Yeah, and we're learning as we go and using the equipment and things like that. So,
So did you, that video that you showed, was that done with the equipment you have, and who did the editing of that?
yes, it was done with the equipment we have, and I did the editing.
Okay, excellent. So definitely doing it on your own and not needing the outside professional kind of help to do it, but doing it with the available platforms.
We are doing it all in-house, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that came through was, are you planning on having people somehow bringing people together, the online people together, so they can chat rather than, you've got the pre-recorded information, but how do you bring them back together to ask questions or whatever?
Yeah, so we are creating a Facebook group. It's going to be attached through the Picton Castles page, but it's going to be a separate area where anyone can go. It'll be connected also to the Vimeo on demand page, so people can go and have discussions amongst each other. They can also ask us questions and things like that. So there will be sort of a discussion area. Also, Vimeo on demand does have a feature where if you are subscribing to the video, you can also chat in the comments. But we are going to encourage that people go to the Facebook group so that way they can connect with a wider group of people.
And I guess the same question that I asked Chris about this, this is partly invention and reinvention on the basis of the new platform. Once things get back to normal, right? Or everybody's doing things the way we used to, which was actually in person, will you keep offering a virtual component to Both in School? Will you be offering this as a remote learning opportunity?
I think it sort of depends on how this goes, to be perfectly honest. We're in a bit of a pilot program at the moment. One of the nice things about the way that we've chosen to set it up using Vimeo is that this does essentially create some evergreen content for us. And so you don't necessarily, if you want to see the video that comes out today, you don't necessarily have to watch it today. It's going to be up there for hopefully years to come. And so, from us also thinking about diversifying revenue, even though at $12 a video, we are not going to ever get rich off these kinds of instructional videos, we're hoping that it will be a little bit of ongoing, sort of extra little revenue on the side that will be continuous. But after we get through this whole session, we'll sort of have to evaluate and see how it went, if it was popular, if it was worth doing again, if there were some things that we should be changing and, sort of reevaluating to try again in a different way. So it's a bit of an experiment, and we are definitely open to feedback.
I think if anybody has any questions, please put them up in the Q&A, whether it's for Picton Castle or for Sultana, either one. We're happy to have those questions. We're coming up on time anyway, but is there this whole thing about assessment of online learning? It's really easy if you can just do a test to go ahead and submit the test and submit the answers, that's fine. But if somebody has to demonstrate a skill, that's really difficult. I think that one of the things we might be looking at is the opportunities to get into those organizations that are working with people who need assistive technology because of their particular learning disabilities or physical disabilities that don't allow them to actually attend in person to something. And so we may be in a place where we're going to be learning from a variety of different providers about how to do assessments of learning in some kind of virtual platform. So so I think that that's going to be something that we deal with some down the road. There's a question here, basically for Sultana. So Chris, I'm going to make you visible again. But if you could, have you had success working with summer youth organizations or just mostly with schools? I don't know if Chris is still available.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So we've had limited success. We haven't really done any work with summer youth organizations other than the Kent County Public Schools had like a summer enrichment program where they booked 3 of these like virtual programs with them. We've also been doing virtual like science camps, which are basically like an hour a day. And it's it's like $50 and we mail a box to each child in advance of the program, which has been pretty popular. And we've had moderate success booking those just because I just don't think parents want to sign their kids up for online stuff right now when they know their kids are all going to be online all fall and potentially for the whole school year. So yes, we've dabbled in it, but mostly what we've done this summer is paddling trips with really small groups. And those have been extremely popular. People are just so hungry to do stuff in person right now, but it's tough because you're limited to groups of 10 or fewer in Maryland, at least. And that's kind of what we've been doing mostly.
Okay, thanks for that. I think with that, we are at our time, and what I want to do is just give each of you an opportunity. Any closing thoughts, Chris, since you've got the podium? Do you want to, anything else that you'd like to, that you thought of that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would just reiterate that, assuming a lot of school systems are doing virtual learning this fall, the teachers are really, really hungry for new and exciting resources, new and exciting guest speakers to help make their lessons pop, because they're struggling through this as much as all of us are. And any way that you can be of assistance, I would encourage you to pursue that. And if you have any questions about what we're doing, please feel free to call or email me at cserino@sultanaeducation.org. We'd be happy to help anybody that's interested.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And Maggie and Danielle, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I just typed the equipment into the chat. That's what I was doing there.
Oh, good. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I guess we just should add that that we are interested in getting feedback about Wilson School, and so the first 2 lessons are going to be free. And so if you have any interest at all, please go check them out and let us know what you think. We are sort of just at the beginning of this whole new experiment, and so looking for some feedback.
Great. Well, absolutely. Thank you so much. I want to thank both Picton Castle, Maggie and Danielle, and Sultana Education Foundation, Chris. A note from one of the participants is what I'm taking away from today, this is from Susan from Sound Experience, is that we all just have to jump into this, just like getting underway, whether you're ready or not, and it will all unfold exactly as it's supposed to. So I think that's a really good way for us to think about this. She goes on to say all tall ships organizations have the resources and staff in place. Let's see what we can do. For those of us who are working hard to keep our programs, our vessels afloat, we are looking for different ways of handling education on board and online. So thank you very much for both of the programs being willing to kind of show us what you're doing, both what's in place and what's in progress. So, and thank you to everybody who attended. Really appreciate your involvement. Look forward to the next webinar where we get a chance and to talk about this. And anytime anybody wants us to help convene a conversation more specifically as a working group or a workshop, more than happy to do that, because I think we could all really engage with one another specific questions about making these programs work. So anyway, happy Wednesday, everyone. Have a good day, and thanks very much for participating.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.